In this video, I can't keep silent about G.I. Joe number 21, the silent issue from the Marvel Comics G.I. Joe series. And I just hit the thing. Thanks for checking out the video. My name is Bernie Gonzalez, and I am a comic book writer and artist. And in these videos, I like to go over some of the comics, graphic novels, art books that have been big influences on me as a storyteller, as an artist. And in this video, I'm going to go over some of the silent issues, or some primarily silent issues of G.I. Joe the series. So if you're an 80s kid like me, you'll remember G.I. Joe the cartoon, released 1983, and it aired through 1986. Marvel Comics then released a 155-issue series starting in 82 that ran through 1994. It was the top-selling Marvel comic in 1985. So this includes some of the issues from that series, and the famous one being issue 21, a silent issue, the most unusual G.I. Joe story ever. As you can tell, it's a very loved copy, but I wanted to throw in some of the other G.I. Joe issues that were inspired because of this silent issue, issue 85, and one of the stories in G.I. Joe Yearbook number 3. So little history of issue 21 goes back to Larry Hama, who is the writer, the main scripter of G.I. Joe the series. He also wrote the file cards on the back of a lot of the G.I. Joe action figures. But he brought a sense of realism to the series, and also as a writer and an artist, he worked on the series for, I believe, all 155 issues, along with other different artists that came in and did the interiors and the cover work. But thing about Larry Hama, the history behind this specific issue, from what I understand, Denny O'Neil, who was the editor at the time when G.I. Joe was being released, and this would have been March 1984, lost the script for the pages for what would be the next issue. So in order to improvise, Larry Hama decided that probably the fastest way for them to pump out an issue was going to be to completely circumvent any dialogue. So he actually did the script and credited as the breakdowns. So I can just imagine feverishly, as I understand, and he's told the story over a 3-day weekend. He goes through, pencils everything out roughly, and then you have Steve Lealoha comes in and does the finishes and the inking on the work. And from what I understand, they're FedExing the pages, trying to get this all done very quickly to meet the deadline for publishing. And in that process, we get one of the most famous issues of G.I. Joe, not only for the fact that it features fan favorite Snake Eyes with a cover drawn by Larry Hama and inked by Klaus Janson, but an issue that is famous for the fact that it is silent. There are no word balloons here, and yet the story is completely here. So let's just kind of flip through some of this so we can check it out. You see a glider, seems to be somebody in ropes there, and it's just kind of neat to see this because, without any dialogue, only going off expressions and tone, the story is completely effectively told. Storm Shadow arriving in the glider. He has someone prisoner. He arrives. We reveal that it's Scarlet. Cobra Commander seems to be pleased as punch. Storm Shadow shows his respect, and they take Scarlet away into deeper into this Cobra Palace, right? So meanwhile, we cut away. We see into the night sky. There's a plane. Love the composition on this last one. The moon there, full moon, of course. Then we get the shot of a plane, and inside the cargo area is our fan favorite Snake Eyes jumping off, and just, again, beautifully done because everything is told here. Obviously, in this case, because we don't have word balloons, this would have just been, the action as it is, but so effective. You can almost feel the wind resistance as he's breaking through, making his way towards the Cobra Palace. Cut back to Scarlet and Storm Shadow, and she's resisting, and then he makes his way away out of the prison area, so she's left there by herself. cut to Destro, who's looking at the situation, and this is probably the closest thing to any dialogue. It's really more of a caption, and we see that factors in intrusion, the fact that this palace is secure, and probability of success super low in the decimal points. So what Snake Eyes is doing seems unlikely that he's going to be successful in infiltrating, but yet it's Snake Eyes, and we can bet on our favorite commando and ninja as he makes his way through the tower. Meanwhile, Scarlet is doing her best to be a reluctant prisoner. She's got, looks like a bobby pin, and she's able to undo her shackles. Snake Eyes making his way. Destro enjoying some sort of a chess set here made out of pieces and taking a moment to stare at the Baroness. Obviously, you know, if you watch the cartoon, you know that the Baroness and Destro had a very interesting relationship, and just kind of playing off that dynamic here as well. Cut back to Storm Shadow checking on his prisoner, and when he lifts over the top there, Scarlet is able to get the one up on him, brings him down, closes him back in her prison. Previous prison, that is, not anymore. Meanwhile, cut back to Snake Eyes, and I mean, I just love the fact that, again, no dialogue, but we see Snake Eyes is doing his best to best these Cobra Troopers, make his way through, but then all of a sudden the alarm kicks on. We see the light. Destro and the troopers making their way. Again, we're going through all of this without a single word balloon, and yet everything in the story is completely there. Destro sees one of the Cobra Troopers who's downed, who's pointing in the direction where Snake Eyes may have gone, just so that we can see the reveal that the Cobra Trooper is down there. Lost his uniform, and it was actually Snake Eyes under the costume, dramatically taking off the goggles. See Storm Shadow calling on his red ninjas, and we've got all the weapons here: katana blade, a sai, some sort of a mace. So they have to make sure that they can get Scarlet back. But meanwhile, she's made her way seemingly to a hangar where you got the Cobra soldiers there moving the glider, a glider that I didn't have, but I always wanted. It was just really cool. Had a lot of little intricate pieces from what I remember friends who had it. It was really neat. I had the G.I. Joe one that was basically a piece of cardboard. So hey, it is what it is. I was happy to get my parents to try to buy me as much of these G.I. Joe figures as possible because they were just so cool. So meanwhile, we've got Scarlet. She's subdued these two Cobra Troopers, and she's making her way out. Snake Eyes has made his way to what should be Scarlet's position, but turns out she's escaped, and he's kind of realizing that, hey, maybe he's not alone because these red ninjas are attacking. Again, the pacing, when you know that this was done over a 3-day weekend, this is, again, effective. The backgrounds are missing, but everything is there. Snake Eyes doing his martial arts moves, being a ninja, and just being able to keep that action going. Effective storytelling, because we see who these ninjas are. That's the one with the sai, and it's like bringing a knife to a gunfight, or in this case a grenade to a sai fight. Doesn't work out well, so much so that all we see is the explosion and a little bit of dust here and smoke from that red ninja. But Storm Shadow and our mace wielding red ninja make their move. Snake Eyes is able to best them. He actually grabs the mace midair, pretty badass. And then Snake Eyes takes them out, makes his way towards the roof to escape now that he knows that Scarlet is no longer where she should be. But little does he know that the person he was there to help escape is actually going to help him make his escape. So as he's kind of setting everything up, we see Storm Shadow is making his way. Scarlet's about to land in the glider. Storm Shadow takes his sword, throws it. He's almost eyeing it down, knowing that it might hit his target. And then Scarlet, not seeing it, thankfully, Snake Eyes takes out his hands and in absolute 80s ninja fashion, grabs the katana blade, throws it to the side, and they make their way. Love the texturing here. It's kind of neat. Meanwhile, you get the shot of Scarlet and Snake Eyes, acknowledging the fact that they are now going to be safe. And we just say a little bit of a rip of Snake Eyes' skin to see what appears to be a tattoo. And in an issue that also happens to be the first appearance of Storm Shadow, we see that the bandages have unraveled a bit on his arm, and he has the same tattoo. And this is starting to set up the fact that there's a connection between them, that they actually part of the same clan. I believe it's the Arishkagi. Sorry if I mispronounced that, but I think in hindsight, the impact that this had, I mean, in the history of comics, silent issues are actually a thing. Before this, Nick Fury, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. #1, that was released in 1968, written and penciled by Jim Steranko. It had 3 pages, first 3 pages that were silent. Nick Fury infiltrating a Hydra fortress. So again, feels kind of like this issue is a nod to that Nick Fury issue by Steranko. It's not until after this in '89, a few years later, Batman issue 433, Jim Aparo does the pencils on a John Byrne script, and it's a shocking issue because it's showing all these characters in Gotham reacting to the fact that Batman is dead, but an issue that's also primarily silent. I think it's just like a headline in a newspaper that says, you know, Batman is dead. Marvel did a month in 2002, I believe it was called Nuff Said, where all the issues were silent. 2000, having mentioned Walt Simonson, he did an issue of Orion that only had 1 or 2 lines of dialogue, but a lot of this comes from this issue here that just sparked a lot of creatives to realize that they could tell stories effectively not using any dialogue, just having a silent issue. But this wasn't the only silent issue in G.I. Joe. So in April 1989, G.I. Joe issue 85 is released with a script by Larry Hama and with pencils by Paul Ryan. And in this issue, unlike issue 21, which was a silent issue, this one, while no dialogue, appropriately named SFX, is completely told through the visuals, through the art, and through sound effects. And it follows Jinx as a member of G.I. Joe going to a museum, and then she confronts Zartan. We have Storm Shadow in there in that second wave with the ninja camouflage and the hood and the bow and arrow. But, you know, just another cool comic in the G.I. Joe line by Larry Hama that just was able to expand on the idea that comics could be different. They were certainly interesting, and in some cases, you know, you could use this idea of not having dialogue, not having word balloons, and still effectively tell a story. And if you thought that was just it, in G.I. Joe Yearbook #3 that came out in March 1987, and there were 4 yearbooks, and they were kind of like G.I. Joe annuals, where you had a recap of the series so far. It included cover galleries, a making of the cartoon, kind of going to the back here, had a few extra stories, cover gallery I was just talking about, pinups. But in this specific issue, you have Hush Job. Again, perfect name, an all-new G.I. Joe silent story featuring all favorite classic Joes, written by Larry Hama, pencils by Ron Wagner, inked by Kim DeMulder. And in this issue, again, we're kind of flipping the script on issue 21. Rather than Scarlet being imprisoned by Cobra, you have Snake Eyes. And in this case, Scarlet is coming to the rescue. We see her parachute in, meet with this guy. We don't necessarily know who he is yet. Meanwhile, Dr. Mindbender does this sort of brain scan for Snake Eyes. We get a kind of early 1970s New York that feels a little bit like the Walter Hill movie The Warriors. We see this man here fighting with some thugs on the subway, just to reveal that the man that Scarlet was visiting, that just defeated these thugs, was actually Storm Shadow. Meanwhile, you also have now Scarlet making her way into this Cobra building, this Cobra Tower in the middle of the city, and almost, again, flipping the script from issue 21, where we saw the reveal of Snake Eyes' tattoo, and Storm Shadow's tattoo for that matter. We see that this is not the the old cleaning woman that appears to be, rather, it's Scarlet in disguise. Meanwhile, you've got Storm Shadow making his way through the sewers into the building, making his way into the basement, defeating the red ninjas. They're able to stop Dr. Mindbender from doing his mind scan. And then, of course, you get some cool ninja battles. A bit of a trick this time where Scarlet pretends to be the Baroness versus last time where Snake Eyes pretended to be a Cobra Trooper, and they're able to make their escape just fine. So they don't want to go into detail into this one or 85 too much because, let's be honest, all of these guys are inspired by G.I. Joe 21. So if you ever get a chance, I would definitely flip through any of these. Certainly 21 might be a little pricey to find. If you can find a beat-up copy, it's just as fine because the story, yes, the most unusual G.I. Joe story, but again, from everything you heard me say in this video, if you can't tell, very inspirational for me, but also very inspirational for other artists. So